from principle number 14 this week is the 14th principle of good sadhu sangha. Cite Shastra to support your statements. So this one is about when we read, then we can bring in other points, other relevant points, to say, oh, this is similar to something I read here, or something I understood from there, or something that was mentioned. Give reference to what you're referring to substantiate and to give others a deeper insight into reading Shastra. So we'll try and develop that aspect as we go along, both today and in future. So I'll sing the introduction prayer now. Krishna, 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 hey. Krishna, 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 hey. Krishna, 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 Raksha Mam. Krishna, 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 Pahi Mam. Rama Raghava, Rama Raghava, Rama Raghava, Raksha Mam. Krishna Keshava, Krishna Keshava, Krishna Keshava, Pahi Mam. So before we read this paragraph, we're in the middle of a chapter. We're actually kind of right in the middle of, right in the center of the action in this particular paragraph, isn't it? So maybe worth just recapping a little bit of how we got to this point. Can anyone remember from last week how this chapter started? And then we'll go through just briefly how it continues. Does anyone remember? Just feel free to speak up. So the boys are going for a morning outing to the forest, yeah? And they were playing games there in the forest. We read about the different types of games they played. Just to get you started, can anyone else pick out things which we discussed? It's been a long week for everyone, has it?
Yeah.
Okay, so the boys were heading out in the morning. They were playing games, and then they is mentioned how they had this competitive spirit to win and catch Krishna. So the winner became very pleased with themselves, very proud of themselves that they were close to Krishna. We discussed that in some detail. Then we spoke about how they saw Krishna as like their best friend. They didn't really see Krishna as the Supreme Lord. But at the same time, they had this great confidence in Krishna that anything that could ever go wrong in their life, they'll be able to depend on him. And the example, the comparison was given to the Devas, right? Does anyone remember that? How the Devas how did the Devas put their confidence as compared to the boys?
They kept on having Amrit, didn't they?
Yeah, so they were dependent on the Amrit which they drank. That was their dependency. Whereas these boys, they were directly dependent on Supreme Lord Krishna. So that was how they were so confident. And then from there we read about the background of Aghasura, who was determined to kill Krishna because he wanted revenge for Krishna killing his brother and sister, who was his brother? Does anyone remember? Who was his brother and sister?
Putna was one.
Putna and Bakasura.
Yeah, that's right. Putna and Bakasura. So he was a mystic yogi, isn't it? And then what did we read most recently in the last paragraph? Can anyone say? in your own words?
The demon expanded, Agatsura expanded into a big serpent.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so they saw this enormous serpent, isn't it, in front of them. And so this is where we are now. So this, the boys have discovered there's an enormous snake lying there in the ground, which they've never seen before. Okay, and that's where we begin today. So Jay Prakash Prabhu will read first, and then Linisha second, yeah? If we have a third reader, that would be nice also. So Prabhu, please begin. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. One of them said, yes, what you say is true. This animal's upper lip appears to be just like the sunshine, and its lower lip is just like the reflection of red sunshine on the ground. Dear friend, just look at the right and the left-hand side of the mouth of the animal. Its mouth appears to be like a big mountain cave, and its height cannot be estimated. The chin is also raised like a mountain summit. That long highway appears to be its tongue, and inside the mouth it is as dark as in a mountain cave. The hot wind that is blowing like a hurricane is his breathing, and the fishy bad smell coming out of it from his mouth is the smell of his intestines. Then they further consulted amongst themselves, if we all at one time entered into the mouth of this great serpent, how could it possibly swallow all of us? And even if it was to swallow all of us at once, it could not swallow Krishna. Krishna will immediately kill him, as he did Bakasura. Talking in this way, all the boys looked at the beautiful lotus-like face of Krishna, and they began to clap and smile. And so they marched forward and entered the mouth of the gigantic serpent.
So this is important, isn't it? Because this just shows how confident they actually were. So they give all these descriptions. They're all discussing amongst themselves about how this giant snake looks. And obviously the description is horrific, isn't it? You know, up to the fishy smell coming from the mouth. You know. So then they discuss all that, and then they say, let's go in his mouth. Because Krishna will take care of us, whatever happens. So that's the level of confidence that they have. So the risk they're willing to take, and to increase the pastimes of Krishna. So this is really what it means for a pure devotee, isn't it? They have such faith in Krishna. Can you think of any examples?
Prahlad Maharaj.
Okay. And how did he take risks in his life?
So he was thrown from the mountain. He was tried to burn. And then he was even told to embrace a pillar that was really hot. In spite of all those things, he knew that the Lord is there and will protect him.
Very great confidence, yeah. Anyone else?
Yeah, Hare Krishna. I've heard of Mirabai drinking poison and nothing happening to her, like she was just a devotee. So.
Yeah. Oh, I haven't heard that one. So she also, and she was a princess, wasn't she?
I don't know much about her story. Sorry, that's what I heard from somebody. So yeah.
Okay. So Mirabai is another example. Yeah.
Could it be Arjuna as well? Because he agreed to fight based on his faith in Krishna, because of what Krishna said. And then also Draupadi, when she was asking to be rescued during the gambling game, so she just closed her eyes and she just remembered Krishna and knew that she will be saved.
Yeah. That's right. So Arjuna and Draupadi. Yeah. Okay. We can read on.
Meanwhile, Krishna, who is the super soul within everyone's heart, could understand that the big status quo figure was a demon. The boys did not know this, however, and thus, while Krishna was planning how to stop the destruction of his intimate friends, all the boys along with their cows entered the mouth of the serpent, but Krishna did not enter. The demon was awaiting Krishna's entrance, and he was thinking, everyone has entered except Krishna, who has killed my brother and sister. Krishna is the assurance of safety to everyone. But when he saw that his friends were already out of his hands and were lying within the belly of the great serpent, he became momentarily aggravated. He was also struck with wonder at how the external energy works so wonderfully. He then began to consider how he could kill the demon and at the same time save the boys and cows. Although there was no factual concern on Krishna's part, he was thinking like that. Finally, after some deliberation, he also entered the mouth of the demon. When Krishna entered, all the demigods who had gathered to see the fun and who were hiding within the clouds expressed their feelings with the words, alas, alas. At the same time, all the friends of Agasura, especially Kamsa, who were all accustomed to eating flesh and blood, expressed their jubilation, understanding that Krishna had also entered the mouth of the demon.
Anything that stands out for anyone there? I think that was interesting.
It's interesting that the demigods all thought this is all good fun. They came to watch as if it was like a game or something.
Mm. Going to the movies, huh? Yeah. I found it interesting that, does anyone else have anything? Otherwise I can go ahead. Okay, so I was thinking it's interesting how Krishna was struck with wonder that his external energy was working so wonderfully. Because just in the previous paragraph, it says how Krishna knew this was a demon. He's a super soul in everyone's heart. And then in this paragraph, this last one, he was struck with wonder how his external energy was working so wonderfully. So does that seem like a contradiction? Or how would you understand that?
Is he not admiring his works of art, I suppose? And the creation, that how it's sort of working.
Yeah, that's right. He's admiring his own creation. As the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Maya Dakshana Prakriti Suyate Sacharacharam. That is, material nature is working under my direction. So it's not independent of Krishna. Nothing is independent. Maya Dakshana Prakriti. And it's very difficult. Then he says that it's very difficult to overcome this material nature. But if you surrender to me, because this is my nature, then your deliverance will be very easy. So Krishna is saying that don't try and overcome material nature yourself, because I'm in control of the material nature. So surrender to me and then you'll overcome material nature. But what we're seeing here is that even though it's Krishna's creation, even he's amazed at how the creation is working, isn't it?
Prabhu, can I say something?
Sure.
Is it because Krishna himself allows to be overcome, or he covered himself with the Yoga Maya as well, so that he forgets himself and he could behave like a child? So he's there himself in Golok Vrindavan, but when he came as his avatar, I don't know if I'm saying right or wrong, he probably covered himself with Yogamaya as well, so that he could admire his creation, and he could also forget that, and he could behave like a child, and he could forget that he is the absolute. I'm not sure if that's right.
Yeah, there's some truth in that. Krishna becomes submissive to his Yogamaya. He allows his energies to control him. He's always in control, but he becomes subordinate as well by his own will. But here what's being talked about is his external energy. So Yogamaya is the spiritual energy. That's his spiritual energy. So by his spiritual energy, he can be take the form of a small boy. He can be very closely associated with his devotees and so on. And he can do all of these pastimes. But he's saying here how he's struck with wonder by his Mahamaya, his illusory energy, his material energy. So I thought of an example, not exactly an example, but a kind of a way of, and I kind of analyzed this in my own thoughts, how this is a wonderful thing, because see, we don't have any experience of when we create something, that it has its own independence. It's not possible for us to create something from scratch which has its own independence. So Krishna can actually do that. Krishna, being the Supreme Lord, he can create life. We can't create life. So Krishna can create all kinds of life. And there's life in two areas. There's life in the spiritual world, of course, and also life in the material world. And there's also his energies, which control those two aspects. So Yogamaya is a personality, we discussed many times before. Mahamaya is also personality. So he's amazed at like what these personalities are capable of doing, because they have their own independence, they have their own free will, they have their potency to do something, you know, the abilities to do something. So Krishna gives them, he invests his energy in them, and then he gives them free will to do as they like. And then he observes. So of course Krishna knows the past, the present, and the future. But at the same time, because Krishna gives free will, he's happy to see, like, you know, how wonderfully we act with free will, isn't it? So this is something that we can't experience ever, because we cannot create anything which has life, which we cannot create life itself. And maybe to some degree, like if you have children, then you can see, like, you know, this is my child, and you've taught your child to do something, and then they do something further, you know. And for the parent, this is like, wow, you know, I teach my child how to crawl, then the child learns how to walk, then the child learns how to run, and then swim and cycle and everything else, climb, you know. So we get a glimpse of that in the external energy. So Krishna is amazed at this demon, like how, you know, how ferocious a demon this could be. Yeah. So how much yogic power this Aghasura has that he could create such a form. That was really astonishing to him. And so even the Devas found this like amusing, isn't it? Because even they have so much power, and they were like astonished at this too. They came to see like what's going to happen next. So it's really setting the scene now for what's going to happen next. Okay, Prabhu. Is that okay with everybody? I don't know if that made too much sense. Yeah? Okay.
While the demon was trying to smash Krishna and his companions, Krishna heard the demigods crying, "Alas, alas," and he immediately began to expand himself within the throat of the demon. Although he had a gigantic body, the demon choked by the expanding of Krishna. His big eyes moved violently, and he quickly suffocated. His life air could not come out from any source, and ultimately it burst out of a hole in the upper part of his skull. Thus his life air passed off. After the demon was dead, Krishna, with his transcendental glance alone, brought all the boys and girls back to consciousness and came with them out of the mouth of the demon. While Krishna was within the mouth of Aghasura, the demon spirit soul came out like a dazzling light, illuminating all directions and waited in the sky. As soon as Krishna came out of the mouth of the demon with his girls and friends, that glittering, effulgent light immediately emerged into the body of Krishna within the vision of all the demigods. Want me to continue the next one?
So this is like the summit of the story, isn't it? The summit of this pastime. So it's worth discussing this one then as well, this paragraph. What points were special to you all? Excuse me. So I think it's interesting how Krishna, he defeats different demons in different ways, isn't it? Like with Putana, he was very innocent, and then he just sucked the life out of her body, you know, in a very innocent way, like a child breastfeeding from a mother. And then with Bakasura, who is her brother, he split him in half from his beak. Then you have who else was there that we've read about? Nala, Kuvera, Manigriva, although they were demons, he delivered them, isn't it? He couldn't break his own rope, which he was tied to, but he managed to break the trees down. And then there was one demon who so Bakasura, then Vatsasura, how he managed to throw Vatsasura. In this case, Krishna gives another. Oh yeah, there was also Trinavartasura, right? Krishna became very, very heavy, right? And in this case, how does Krishna manage to defeat Aghasura? Or have I lost you all because I've been giving you different descriptions?
No, he just expanded
Yeah.
a lot, which made the Aghasura choke.
Yeah. So in this instance, he uses another yogic power by growing himself. Yeah. So that was the same yogic power which Aghasura himself used, which we read about last week. It's called Mahima Siddhi. Prabhupada says that it's called Mahima Siddhi when they're able to grow themselves. The yogis, they can grow themselves. So you can see, even if someone has this yogic power, and you can say practically to the fullest extent, because Krishna was even amazed how he grew himself, how Aghasura grew himself. Still, that yogic power is like nothing compared to Krishna's power. So even the demigods, they were amazed to come and see this. Yeah. And then what happened is, it says, Aghasura popped out of his own head. His life and soul popped out of his head because Krishna basically crushed him from within inside. So it's quite gruesome and descriptive, isn't it? And then everybody was watching. And what happened next? Anyone say?
Aghasura's spirit waited outside, waiting for Krishna to surface and then obviously merge with Krishna.
Yeah. So everyone was watching that, huh? There was all the demigods. They came to see that, like how amazing that was, right? And then not only that, all of his friends had passed away as well. So how did Krishna deal with that?
He just made them conscious again, didn't he?
Yeah, and how did he do that?
Transcendental glance.
Yeah. So that's quite amazing too. So many amazing things Krishna could do in just this one small section which we read. So, you know, those descriptions are really, really incredible. Like we have this prayer, the Govindam prayers every morning, which we sing. Yeah, Angani yasya sakale driyavritti manti pashyanti panti kalyanti chiram jaganti ananda chinmaya sadujvala vigrahasya govindam adipurusham tam aham bhajami. Yeah, has anyone heard this song before, the Govindam song? Yeah, do you know what this one means? This second part of the prayer, which we sing. Does anyone know that? Okay, so the second part means that because we sing this nearly every time we go to temple in the morning, right? If we go to, well, at the moment we don't, but if you get the opportunity to go to temple in the morning, then they sing every day this song, and it's really amazing why we sing every single day this verse, because it describes how Krishna, with his one sense, any sense, he can do the activity of any other sense of the body. Can you imagine? So we sing this in the morning because Krishna has interchangeable senses. Interchangeable. His senses are interchangeable. Yeah. So here, just by his glance, he's bringing life. He's bringing back to life. He doesn't have to do work with his hands and, you know, put them all together and put the soul back in and this and that. You know. Yeah. Or he doesn't have to, with his genital, you know, produce life just by looking. You know, he can produce life. Similarly, when we offer prasadam to Krishna, it's explained in Bhagavad Gita in the purport. In one purport, Prabhupada writes how Krishna is eating, not by his mouth, he's eating with his ears. Because the mantras that we chant, Krishna is tasting the food that we prepare. Can you imagine? So this is Krishna consciousness, you know, being aware how Krishna is reciprocating with us, how we are dealing with Krishna. We should be very conscious of that, isn't it? It gives us a new perspective on how we see the deity, how we interact with the deity. Is not different from Krishna. Is that okay? Yeah. So here Krishna is bringing the boys back to life with his glance. So Prabhu, please, could you read on?
Yeah. Demigods became overwhelmed with joy and showered flowers on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, and thus they worshipped him. The denizens of heaven danced in jubilation. The denizens of Gandharvaloka offered various kinds of prayers. Drummers beat drums in jubilation. The Brahmins recited Vedic hymns, and all the devotees of the Lord chanted the words Jaya, Jaya. All glory to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When Lord Brahma heard those auspicious vibrations which sounded throughout the higher planetary system, he immediately came down to see what had happened. He saw that the demon was killed, and he was struck with wonder at the uncommon glorious pastimes of the personality of Godhead. The gigantic mouth of the demon remained in an open position for many days and gradually dried up. It remained a spot of pleasure pastimes for all the cowherd boys.
Okay, so again, we're reading about the demigods and their amazement. Because, yeah, how can I explain what I'm trying to say? So I just found it interesting that Lord Brahma was struck with wonder. Because of course, Lord Brahma, he's seen Krishna incarnate so many times, isn't it? One I find particularly interesting is the incarnation of Varahadev. Does anyone know Varahadev? Has anyone heard of Varahadev? How did Varahadev appear? Does anyone know? I think Kirtika Mataji is going to say.
So Varahadev is the dwarf avatar?
That's a Vaman.
Vaman.
And Varahadev, he is the boar incarnation.
Boring.
He's holding the
Globe.
earth, the earth, yeah.
Yeah,
on
yeah,
us.
yeah. So he's the husband of Bhumi Devi. He comes as Bhumi Devi's husband. So he's in the form of a boar. Yeah. And he's born because the earth, so we all be familiar with Hiranyakashipu, isn't it? From the Nrsimhadev pastime. But his brother's name is Hiranyaksha. And he comes before, and he takes all the precious jewels and the gold and the minerals, and he removes it from the earth, which takes the earth off balance. And because the earth then sinks down into the Garbhodakshai ocean, which is at the bottom of the universe, there's an ocean. So the earth falls into this water underneath the universe, at the bottom of the universe. And so everybody's like wondering what to do, you know. Such a powerful demon, he's just like displaced the planet, you know. And so Brahma, he's seen these amazing, unusual things so many times. And how Krishna incarnates there is Varahadev. He comes in a like microscopic form, and he comes out of the nose of Lord Brahma. Lord Brahma has 4 heads, isn't it? So out of one of his heads, there's 1 nostril, and he comes out from the nostril like a microscopic form, and then he just grows and grows and grows and grows and grows to this giant pig, you know, giant boar. Now, if that's not like really far out, I don't know what is, isn't it? That's pretty like astonishing, isn't it? Right? So Brahma gets to have all these, you know, experiences, all these darshans of Krishna in all these like incredible ways that you can't even imagine, like, you know. And so here again, like Brahma is astonished. Yeah, that was the point I was trying to make. He's struck with wonder at the uncommon glorious pastimes of the personality of Godhead. Okay. If anyone likes to share, don't have to wait for me to ask. Or can I have Linisha read next then?
Prabhu, can I read? Prabhu, Linisha is a bit unwell. I was taking care of her.
Oh, sorry to hear that.
That's all right, Prabhu. She'll be all right after a while. Sorry, I missed a paragraph. I was taking care of her, Prabhu. From where it is?
Are you sure you'd like to read? You'll be okay? Or you want to?
Yeah, that's fine, Prabhu. I will do. Yeah.
Okay, then we're reading now paragraph beginning. The killing of Aghasura took place.
Okay, Prabhu. Yeah, I'll do it. I'll read it, Prabhu. Thank you. The killing of Aghasura took place when Krishna and all his boyfriends were under 5 years old. Children under 5 years old are called Kaumara. From 5 years up to the 10th year, they are called Pauganda. And from the 10th year up to the 15th year, they are called Kaishora. After the 15th year, boys are called youths. For 1 year, there was no discussion of the incident of Aghasura demon in the village of Vrija. But when the boys attained their 6th year, they informed their parents of the incident with great wonder.
So just giving a description. The Vedic description, it differentiates childhood psychology in these groups. So this is very useful information for parents, you know. You don't find this in modern psychology, at least not to my knowledge. There's very clear distinctions in the psychology of a child at these different age groups. The basic principle Prabhupada gives us, if you're a parent or if you're planning to be a parent, then for a child from birth to 5 years old, the principle for looking after the child is just to give them love. Give them, you know, just give them so much confidence and faith, and that you're going to completely take care of everything they need. So that's the age which children should be most spoiled, up to 5 years old. Yeah. then it said that from 6 years old to 10 years old, the psychology changes because the false ego starts to kick in a bit more. Children are so much more innocent up to 5, according to Vedic psychology at least. That's when children need to be more disciplined, because the child has got so much confidence in the parent now. The child can be disciplined because of that first 5 years done in that way. So generally, children shouldn't be punished from 0 to 5. They can be corrected but not punished. And then there you can introduce, like, not that we should punish children, but you should introduce discipline, like how you can actually train the intelligence. Like, if you don't do this, then this will happen. That intelligence kicks in, from 6 years old up to 10. And then 10th year to 15th year is called Keshor. So then the child has to be given in more formal education from those ages. And so then from 16 years, it's considered that the child is no longer a child, but the oldest adult. The youngest adult is 16 years old in Vedic psychology. So from 16 years old, they should be treated like a friend, as good as one's own friend, because they've gone through these stages of development. Then you cannot train a child, you cannot punish or discipline a child, or you cannot have any of the other stages. You cannot be like, unlimitedly affectionate to someone at 16, 17, 18, because they take advantage of it. Or they rebel when they're 16 and you try and punish a 16, 17-year-old. There's rebellion. So from going through this type of training, the child becomes a best friend. And it's explained that if this is done really well, then there's no like, what do you call it, like 2-year-old tantrums, or like at age 16 the child has this rebellious phase, adolescent age. So if it's done really well, then those kind of situations can also be avoided. So isn't that interesting? How Vedic psychology delineates different mentalities at different ages. So this is nice because some of these things in the modern world you cannot figure out through research so much, or you have to have so much research to figure these things out. But in the Vedic understanding, it's very clear cut. Do this, do this, do this, and that's what actually works, because this is Krishna's creation. He's giving that knowledge himself. Okay, Mataji, you could read on unless anyone has comment or question. Anyone? Okay then.
Lord Sri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is far greater than such demigods as Lord Brahma, it is not at all difficult to award the opportunity of merging with his eternal body. This he awarded to Agashura. Agashura was certainly the most sinful living entity, and it is not possible for the sinful to merge into the existence of the Absolute Truth. But in this particular case, because Krishna entered into Agashura's body, the demon became fully cleansed of all sinful reaction. Persons constantly thinking of the eternal form of the Lord in the shape of the deity or in the shape of the mental form are awarded the transcendental benediction of entering into the kingdom of God and associating with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So we can just imagine the elevated position of someone like Agashura, into whose body the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, personally entered. Great sages, meditators, and devotees constantly keep the form of the Lord within their hearts, or they see the deity form of the Lord in the temples. In that way, they became liberated from all material contamination and at the end of the body entering to the kingdom of God. This perfection is possible simply by keeping the form of the Lord within the mind. But in the case of Agashura, The Supreme Personality of Godhead personally entered. Agashura's position was that therefore greater than the ordinary devotees or the greatest yogis.
Oh, some really amazing observations there, isn't it? What do you all think? A lot of people hiding from the screen today. Not many people on the camera. Feeling a little bit shy, everyone, huh?
There's lots of things going in the background, Prabhuji. So I'm not in my library anymore. So
Oh,
that's
okay.
why. I'm in London, so I'm at the
Different
same
environment.
time zone.
That's what
We don't mind. We're not interested in what's going on in the background.
Yeah, that's why I switch it off so that it doesn't distract anybody.
So
So, so this is amazing that Krishna could even enter into Aghasura's body, and therefore this explains what was said before, that the glittering effulgence light immediately merged into the body of Krishna within the vision of all the demigods. In the previous, we read that. We didn't comment on that, but now from this, it explains that it is because Krishna entered into Aghasura and probably purified him, because as devotees, Krishna, I mean, we are supposed to think and meditate on Krishna all the time. Here, Krishna is entering into Aghasura. So, how fortunate is he? I mean, I'm just wondering. I'm awed.
amazing point. Yeah, yeah, you captured that really nicely, Mataji. Even the demigods, this is the reason why they were astonished, isn't it? Because they were astonished that Krishna, he went into the mouth of a demon. So they put so much, the demigods are devotees, of course, of Krishna. Otherwise, they wouldn't have this position of, universal responsibility. Krishna is giving them some responsibility. And they're trying to meditate on Krishna. The devotees, we are trying to meditate on Krishna. But here, Krishna personally forced himself into Aghasura's mouth and purified him. Yeah. Anyone else have any thoughts? I find the first part interesting, how so much of the context is like about entering into oneself, I just think about how do you put something into yourself? Generally it's through the mouth, isn't it? You eat. Yeah. So when you eat, you consider, like, is it clean? Is it not clean? Yeah. Is it cooked? Is it not cooked? Yeah. Is it hard or soft? How is it? Like.
Yeah, from this incident, my realization is, it's like when you drink the poison, your body becomes poisonous, right? Now, Krishna is a pure, and who entered the body of Aghasura. So because of the Krishna's purity, Aghasura's body became pure.
Yeah, Krishna entered into Aghasura's body. That's why it became pure, yes.
Yeah. So all the contamination removed from his body.
Yeah. And so then that way, then afterwards, so in the beginning it said that how Krishna, he also accepted the soul of Aghasura. So that soul was completely purified. So first they saw, in one moment, this demon come into Vrindavan and eat all the boys. The next moment they saw that Krishna enters into that body, and then the demon dies and the soul is hovering above of the demon. And then Krishna comes out, and then that they realize that actually that soul is pure. Why? Because it entered into Krishna. Because Krishna has accepted that soul which is pure. So Krishna purified him externally, and then internally he entered into Krishna.
Yeah, because Krishna accepts only pure person, right? Now Aghasura wasn't pure, so he has to purify him to accept him.
Yeah. And so he became pure externally and internally.
Internal, yeah, both.
So, so who was reading now? Amu Mataji was reading, isn't it?
Yeah. Maharaja Parikshit, who was engaged in hearing the transcendental pastimes of Lord Krishna, who saved the life of Maharaja Parikshit while he was in the womb of his mother, became more and more interested to hear about him. And thus he questioned the sage Shukadeva Goswami, who was reciting Srimad Bhagavatam before the king.
Okay, you can continue.
King Parikshit was a bit astonished to understand that the killing of Agashura demon was not discussed for 1 year until after the boys attained the Pauganda age. Maharaja Parikshit was very inquisitive to learn about this, for he was sure that such an incident was due to the working of Krishna's different energies.
Yes. So how old were the boys when this pastime happened? If we read about the different age groups before.
5 to 10.
5.
5, I heard 5.
5 to 10.
5 to 10.
5
to 10.
Yeah.
6 to 10.
6 to 10 I heard. And someone said 5 to 10.
6th year actually. 6th year, Prabhu.
Sorry, I couldn't hear. 6th year.
Year. Because it has mentioned, but when the boys attained their 6th year, they informed the parents of the incident with great wonder.
Yeah. So he was astonished because this pastime wasn't discussed for 1 year.
So it would be 5 then.
So they're discussing it when they were
6th year.
6 years old. That means when it happened, they were 5 years old. You know? Yeah. So this gives us a clue as to Krishna's age. So he couldn't be more than 5 or 6 in this pastime, because he's only taking care of calves at this time. He's not even looking after cows. He was so young. Okay, and the last paragraph, how is that? Mataji, could you read the last one?
Yes, Prabhu. Generally, the Kshatriyas or the administrative class are always busy with their political affairs, and they have very little chance to hear about the transcendental pastimes of Lord Krishna. But while Parikshit Maharaj was hearing these transcendental pastimes, he considered himself to be very fortunate because not only was he hearing Krishna's pastimes, but he was doing so from Shukadeva Goswami, the greatest authority on Srimad Bhagavatam. Thus, being requested by Maharaja Parikshit, Shukadeva Goswami continued to speak about the transcendental pastimes of Lord Krishna in the matter of his form, qualities, fame, and paraphernalia. Thus ends the Bhakti Vedanta purport of the 12th chapter of Krishna, the killing of Agashura demon.
Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you, Prabhu.
So we didn't discuss actually why they're telling the pastime after 1 year. Because in previous cases, whenever pastime happened, they'll go home to their parents in the evening, and what would they do?
Tell them.
So I
They
didn't.
tell stories of what happened during that day. What
Yeah,
happened
yeah.
that day, what Krishna didn't do, or
So even in the spiritual world, they're discussing all the activities of Krishna that day, isn't it? So that's the amazing thing. So they're doing Krishna Katha every day, but they're like, for them it's like live, you know, live it's happening, and then they go home and immediately they tell the parents, this happened, this happened, this happened, this happened. But in this case, they didn't tell for 1 year what happened. Mystery. Does anyone know the answer to that?
Yeah, I think I do.
Okay, who wants to go first? Who's enthusiastic?
Preeti, go ahead. You can go.
Thank you, Mataji.
Yeah, Brahma had taken the kids and Gopas and then the calves as well for a year, just to see the supremacy of Krishna.
Yeah. So Brahma in the next chapter, which is called The Stealing of the Boys and the Calves by Brahma. Because he stole the boys and the calves, for 1 year, they were unconscious. And then when they came back, then they were still in the consciousness of 1 year ago. So that's why when they came home that day, then they were saying, oh, guess what happened today? Guess what happened today? But actually it was 1 year ago what happened. Okay. So that's that.
Prabhuji, can I ask a question?
Okay.
Prabhuji, everybody were 5-year-old, but I guess Krishna should be even younger than that, because when he was born, Kansa killed all his age mates. Or was he 5 at this time?
That's a good question, Mataji. I also wondered about this before. I never got any answer actually to that question, because it said that all of the children born the same year as Krishna, anyone who was born in the first year, that year that Krishna was born, was also killed. So, so you can understand that there will be boys who are older than Krishna, boys who are younger than Krishna. Yeah. It's not clear whether there were other boys like Krishna, or girls for that matter, who also survived. I've not heard anything more on that.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
I had a feeling when you were going to ask that question, it was going to be something difficult.
Oh, Prabhuji, please.
You always ask challenging questions, not challenging, but intelligent, interesting questions. So shall we read now into the chapter 13? Amu Mataji?
I'd like to mention one thing in this last paragraph.
Yes, please, Prabhu.
As Srila Prabhupada has explained, normally we always like to hear kathas. So it's important to hear katha, but it's more important from whom you are hearing. I mean, you are hearing from. That makes a lot of difference.
Yeah, that's mentioned here, isn't it, Prabhu? So who is Maharaj Parikshit, who is choosing to hear from, is mentioned here, isn't it?
Yeah, because in India, there are many preachers who preach, but to make money, you know.
So it's not a business.
Yeah.
Krishna Katha shouldn't be a business.
Shouldn't be a business. And if it's not business, then it's more effective.
Yeah.
For us to, digest, understanding.
Yeah. So why is that? And that's an interesting point you brought up, Prabhu. That when Krishna Katha is done as a business, is not the same as when Krishna Katha is done freely distributed.
Because of the purity.
Yeah. So that purity, what is that? There's no other motivation, you see?
Yeah.
When someone has no motivation to speak about Krishna, other than to just glorify Krishna for that purpose only, that's considered purity, that's considered pure motivation.
Yeah.
And because that pure motivation is there, then it doesn't matter how wonderfully or brilliantly that speaker is, or how eloquent their words are, or how poetic they are. All of those things are secondary to Krishna manifesting himself in the Katha. People having a realization of Krishna, how wonderful Krishna is, because Krishna will reveal himself. Because of that pure desire. Because the person has a pure desire, or they don't desire any other motivation except to glorify Krishna, then Krishna will presently become, or he will presently be there in the Katha. That experience is there when it's done purely. So sometimes people do like to hear Katha, which is described very beautifully, so-called, but they will not experience Krishna if there's some other motivation on the part of the speaker. Is that right, Prabhu?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Yeah, an amazing point that you brought up. Thank you. So that's in relation to here, where Maharaj Parikshit, he's choosing to hear from Sukadev Goswami. So maybe we can discuss, does everybody know who Sukadev Goswami is? Who can say? Okay, Sashi Mataji is not aware, so let's discuss that a little bit.
Was he a son of Vyasadeva?
Yes, that's right.
Yes.
So Vyasadeva, he wrote all of the Vedas. He compiled all the Vedas. He's actually Krishna's avatar. Prabhupada many times says that Vyasadeva, or Veda Vyas, he is the literary incarnation of Krishna. He's personified just to write all the literatures.
Even about the quality of Sukadeva Goswami, I remember one pastimes in spiritual is some ladies were well, obviously gopis were taking a bath in the lake or whatever, and Sukadeva Goswami passed from there, and they were not worried about it because of the purity of Sukadeva Goswami. And just after that, Vyasadeva passed, and ladies were just, as soon as they saw Srila Vyasadeva, they were just quickly try to cover their bodies. And Srila Vyasadeva asked them question that, Sukadeva Goswami passed and there was no effect on you, you know, and why, what's the problem with me? And they just explain about the purity of Sukadeva. What they said, they mentioned, for Sukadeva Goswami, man or woman, there's no difference. So he said that's why we knew his quality, so it doesn't matter to him.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a nice pastime, isn't it? About this is just showing the purity of Sukadeva Goswami.
That's right, yeah.
So you can just imagine if Vyasadeva himself, he's the incarnation of Krishna, like we said. But as far as I heard, Prabhu, it wasn't the gopis as such, but it was after Sukadeva Goswami was born, he was going through the forest named Sharanya, where these ladies were. So those ladies, they thought that Sukadeva, they found him to be more renounced than even Vyasadeva. Yeah.
And Sukadev Goswami, he stayed in his mum's womb for 16 years because he didn't want to come out and didn't want to be in the material world. And then as soon as he was born, he just rushed to the forest.
Yes, that's the beginning of the pastime. Yeah, thank you for adding that. So, extraordinary person, Sukadeva Goswami. He was, before he was born, he was already he already had these mystic powers. And we can go on and speak about him actually. Like, even his previous life, how he became Sukadeva Goswami. That's also interesting. Maybe we can save that for another time. But yeah, so this is the life of Sukadeva Goswami, that he was born at 16 years old, and he was Avaduta, which means, as Prabhu said, he was he didn't differentiate different types of bodies. He didn't see the body; he could see the soul. So he was wandering naked because he was Avaduta. He didn't think like I need to cover myself or not, or what, you know. That was, and he was extraordinarily beautiful, you know. He was actually like a really beautiful, effulgent person. And 16-year-old, he was just walking naked. So the girls, they were not disturbed by that. But Vyasadeva, he was a married man. He was a household, you know, man, and so they felt ashamed that, you know, he has a wife, he has a family, and then they felt they should cover up, because that was the role, that was the leela that he was playing, like a householder. Okay, I saw Priti wanted to. She raised her hand. Is that right?
Yeah. Where are these leelas of Sukadeva Goswami written?
They're in the beginning of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So you'll find them at the end of the first canto, I believe. Yeah. So we can move on now to the next chapter 13. Was that okay for you, Shashi Mataji? Give an introduction to Sukadeva Goswami? Yeah? Great. And so actually just, sorry to finally say then, so he went like this, he was born, and he went through this forest, and then he came to the place, this was the Naimisharanya forest, where the Srimad Bhagavatam was actually spoken, and all these other sages were there. So Narada Muni was there, Vyasadeva was there, the Saptarishis were there, everyone who was anyone was there at this place, and they were ready to see what Parikshit Maharaj was about to do when he was leaving his body, because everybody knew that Shukadeva was Parikshit Maharaj, he was a pure devotee of Krishna. He was a king, but he was a pure devotee. Everybody knew it. So they all came to see how he's going to leave this world. And nobody dared to sit and instruct him, but Sukadeva Goswami, who came just like running through the jungle naked, as we described, and he just came and sat on the Vyasa San, and they all stood up and respected him as being the greatest of them all. So this is the position of Sukadeva Goswami, and this is why Prabhu is speaking about why it's important to hear from someone who is so pure. So this Srimad Bhagavatam is considered the most pure of all the literatures. Amala Puran is called, because it's spoken by Sukadeva Goswami, who even all these other sages they respected. So even Lord Shiva was there, all the demigods, all Brahma and others, they were all listening. It's amazing. In that place called Naimisharanya forest.
Even when he was sitting on Vyasasan and demigods came with Amrit, then, and they said, you keep this Amrit and
Give us the Amrita.
yeah, we like to hear Bhagavatam as well. And Sukadeva Goswami said no, because he said that this is like a business,
It's interesting. I haven't heard that past time. Okay, so that also happened. Yeah.
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 And he didn't accept Amrit from demigods, and they had to go back to heavenly planet.
Okay. So let's go on to now the next chapter. Thank you, Prabhu. Who is the third reader? Was it you, Kirtika Mataji?
Yes, if there's no one else who wants to read, I don't mind reading.
I've just seen some comments in the chat. Was there some questions in there? Oh, okay. No problem, sorry. Oh, Preeti, was that your question earlier?
Yes, it was.
Okay. Yeah, sorry. Kirtika Mataji, do you want to go ahead?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, yes. Chapter 13, the stealing of the boys and calves by Brahma. Sukadeva Goswami was very much encouraged when Maharaj Parikshit asked him why the coward boys did not discuss the death of Aghasura until after 1 year had passed. He explained thus, "My dear king, you are making the subject matter of transcendental pastime of Krishna fresher by your inquisitiveness. It is said that it is the nature of a devotee to constantly apply his mind, energy, words, ears, etc. in the hearing and chanting about Krishna. This is called Krishna consciousness, and for one who is rapt in hearing and chanting Krishna, the subject matter never becomes hackneyed or old. That is the significance of transcendental subject matter in contrast to material subject matter. Material subject matter becomes stale and one cannot hear a certain subject for a long time. He wants a change. But as far as transcendental subject matter is concerned, it is called Nityana Vanna Vayamana. This means that one can go on chanting and hearing about the Lord and never feel tired, but will remain fresh and eager to hear more and more.
Okay. I was going to say something about the first paragraph, but I forgot now.
Sorry, Prabhuji.
Yes, that was it. So I was just thinking how it's interesting that if you don't ask, you don't get. Okay. So this chapter begins because Parikshit Maharaj has asked the question, and now he's getting a whole, I don't know, it's not even one chapter, is it 2 or even 3 chapters now? The next 3 chapters are coming about just because of his questions. And so this is Krishna Katha, you know, not just hearing in a very like what do you say, in a
Docile.
docile way or a casual way. It's active hearing, huh? So hear and then think and then discuss, and then, you know, think again about it and then discuss it. So that's actually really what hearing Shastra is about. This is why I really like this kind of format for our discussions, you know, as opposed to lectures, because it's very commonplace when we hear lecture, or if we were just to read by ourselves, you can go through pages and pages or hear for hours and hours, and sometimes it just doesn't go in, you know. I've been many instances where you go to a class and then you come out and like, or if you suppose you come to some place and the class is just finished and you say, hey, Prabhu Mataji, how was the class? Oh, it was amazing, amazing. Tell me what happened. Oh, you know, you should have been there. It was just really good. Tell me what happened. What did they speak about? Yeah, like, you know, Krishna consciousness, really amazing. Feel so inspired. But, you know, actually to be able to recite it again, because that attention isn't there, it doesn't happen. So Prabhupada is saying that we should be wrapped in hearing about Krishna consciousness. Enraptured, you see. So we can see like so it's a really great opportunity here to ask questions, especially we have our senior devotees here, Madhvi Mataji and Satyanarayan Prabhu, who's giving us their association. So, you know, just take this opportunity like Parikshit Maharaj is doing here, ask questions, have the chance to discuss, and then so much more comes out of it, isn't it? Huh? So Sukadev Goswami, he's even feeling encouraged by that, you see. And, you know, liberated persons, they're discussing these pastimes. So what to speak of us, you know? Liberated means that they're fully satisfied. They're not lacking anything. They don't have any desire. They're not hankering for anything. Huh? They're completely happy and peaceful. Huh? So Brahma Bhuta Prashanatma, they're Prasanatma, they're peaceful. Yeah, they're liberated. They're situated in Brahman. And even then, they like to discuss. They like to discuss this Krishna Katha because it's so relishable for them. So this is actually more than just being on a Brahman platform. It's actually higher. So that's why just by discussing Krishna Katha, we can enter that stage that the liberated persons are at, because they're doing that, you know. And it's so easy if we focus our mind, we can also do it. Yeah.
And I think he asked question for us.
Yeah.
Because we were not there.
Yeah, and I've also read in Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada many times says, or one instance actually in particular is Prabhupada mentions how Arjuna, he wanted to see the universal form of Krishna. And by the end of it, he had had enough. He didn't actually want to see it. He only was asking so other people would see that this is Bhagavan, this is Krishna.
Yeah.
So he was doing for us. So like that here, who is Parikshit Maharaj? He's the grandson of Arjuna, isn't it? So he's in that same mood. Yeah. So unless anyone else has further comment or question. we could continue. Yuti Kamataji?
Prabhuji, how do you pronounce this word Nityanavayamana?
It's Nitya Navanavayanam.
Nitya Navana
Nityanavavayavanam.
Vayamana.
Vayamana.
It means that Nitya means eternal. Nava means fresh. Not only fresh, but twice fresh. Nava Nava.
Nava Nava.
Nava Navayanam.
Yeah. New.
Okay, thank you, Hare
So
Krishna.
it's always fresh in the mind. Becomes ever fresh, as Prabhupada would say.
Mana.
Eternally ever fresh in the mind.
Can I continue, Prabhuji? Should I start reading?
Yes, please.
It is the duty of the spiritual master to disclose all confidential subject matter to the inquisitive and sincere disciple. Thus, Sukadev Goswami began to explain why the killing of Aghasura was not discussed until 1 year had passed. Sukadev Goswami told the king, "Now hear of this secret with attention. After saving his friends from the mouth of Aghasura and after killing the demon, Lord Krishna brought his friends to the bank of Yamuna and addressed them as follows. My dear friends, just see how this spot is very nice for taking lunch and playing on the soft sandy Yamuna bank. You can see how the lotus flowers in the water are beautifully bloomed and how they distribute their flavor all around. The chirping of the birds, along with cooing of the peacocks, surrounding by the whispering of the leaves in the trees, combine and present sound vibrations that echo one another. And this just enriches the beautiful scenery created by the trees here. Let us have our lunch in this spot because it's already late and we are feeling hungry. Let the calves remain near us and let them drink water from the Yamuna. While we engage in our lunch taking, the calves may engage in eating the soft grasses that are in this spot."
I love reading paragraphs like this, personally. It's one of those ones you can, at least for me, I feel like you can just read this again and again. It's such a beautiful meditation, isn't it?
Yeah.
You can just kind of close your eyes and hear it, and you can feel like, how is it like to be there? Huh? Such beautiful
Very descriptive. You can see, you can transport yourself probably to that place.
Yeah. So amazing. Yeah, that's it. You can transport yourself there, isn't it? Your mind just goes there. Huh? This is an amazing thing. So that's the thing. The subject matter itself, it's not like mundane, you know. Sometimes common people, they would read the pastimes of Krishna, and they just think it's like stories, you know. It's just like a novel or a story, but it's not like that at all. Really, you can meditate on these descriptions, these sceneries of the spiritual world. Prabhupada is giving us this meditation on the spiritual world. I'm reading. Okay. Would you go ahead, please?
On hearing this proposal from Krishna, all the boys became very glad and said, "Certainly, let us all sit down here to take our lunch." They then let loose the calves to eat the soft grass. Sitting down on the ground and keeping Krishna in the center, they began to open their different boxes bought from home. Lord Shri Krishna was seated in the center of the circle, and all the boys kept their faces towards him. They ate and constantly enjoyed seeing the Lord face to face. Krishna appeared to be in the whirl of the lotus flower, and the boys surrounding him appeared to be its different petals. The boys collected flowers, leaves of the flowers, and the barks of the tree and placed them under their different boxes, and thus they began to eat their lunch, keeping company with Krishna. While taking lunch, each boy began to manifest different kinds of relations with Krishna, and they enjoyed each other's company with joking words. While thus enjoying lunch with his friends, Lord Krishna's flute was pushed within the belt of his cloth, and his bugle and cane were pushed on his left-hand side of his cloth. He was holding a lump of foodstuff prepared with yogurt, butter, rice, and pieces of fruit salad in his left palm, which could be seen through his petal-like finger joints. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, who accepts the results of all great sacrifices, was laughing and joking, enjoying lunch with his friends in Vrindavana. And thus, the scene was being observed by the demigods from heaven. As for the boys, they were simply enjoying transcendental bliss in the company of Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Thank you, Mataji. You read that very nicely.
It's a beautiful paragraph. I really enjoyed it.
So there's like some metaphors used here, isn't it? I think that's the word, poet, like a kind of poetic description of how Krishna is sitting with his friends. What did you see that? Anyone? What did you see? What did you read about that?
So Krishna is in the center and all the friends are around him and their face is towards Krishna. So it's like a lotus flower, a whirl, like he's in the center and everybody around him.
Yeah.
Be facing him. And if you saw it from the top, I guess where the demigods, we always feel that they are on the top. So they could probably see the whole flower.
Bird's eye view.
Yeah.
So the Vedas is full of like wonderful descriptions like this, you know, metaphors or poetic descriptions, where something is like something. And we have to take it as it is, you know. Often you find in commentaries on Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita and other literatures, where the speaker isn't pure devotee, or the speaker doesn't come in the line of a pure devotee, then the meanings, these type of interpretations get mixed up and misrepresented, misconstrued into something else. Then they say, actually, this is just a poetry description. Actually, they're looking at a flower, you know, and the boys are not real, or the Bhagavad Gita is not real, and Krishna is not a real person, but there's a spirit within Krishna which is coming through. So all these kind of bogus conceptions are there when there's not proper teacher. On the other hand, when you have the bona fide teacher, they can give you this beautiful poetic meditations, isn't it? Which is the advantage we have of hearing from Srila Prabhupada here. And there's another example given here about the eating of Krishna. Did anyone see that? Just at the end of the paragraph. Maybe it's a little bit less obvious then. So it's saying how the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who accepts the results of all great sacrifices, was laughing and joking, enjoying lunch with his friends in Vrindavan. So I was just kind of picturing that, you know. So he accepts great sacrifices. Sacrifice means yagya, isn't it? That's the word for sacrifice. Yeah. So I'm sure we've all sat in a yagya before. Has anyone sat in a yagya before? Yeah. So do you ever have that image when you're sitting in front of a yagya? You know, that like Krishna is sitting there with his friends. He's the enjoyer of all sacrifices. And they're all putting food in his mouth like this and this from different sides. Some of them are stealing food out from him, from his plate, and the others are putting food in, you know. So maybe you'll see yagya differently next time you're sitting in front of this sacrifice. Swaha, swaha, swaha. But this is actually Krishna, which is in the yagya. It's not different. You know, that's Krishna right there. You can do that. You can have that same meditation, isn't it? It all depends on one's meditation.
Yeah.
So I was just thinking how, you know, Prabhupada has written this in this way, and how much insight Prabhupada has, how personable he is with Krishna. That he has that type of vision that, you know, that Yagya is Krishna. He's just like Krishna is eating with his friends. Krishna is here in the form of the fire, sitting with us, and we're offering items to him.
Yeah, also whole atmosphere compared with lotus flower and petals. So normally what we get from lotus flower, good fragrance, don't we? So like reading this, you just smell that fragrance and so much love in there.
Wow. Yeah, that's a nice reflection, Prabhu.
Yeah, it's so much love.
Okay, so maybe we have time for one more paragraph then.
Did you have a question?
Sure.
This Krishna book, was it Prabhupada's creative writing, or just like how he said for the Bhagavad Gita, that even the purports, it was like as if Krishna was giving him the purports to write? Do you know if Prabhupada mentioned anywhere that this book, yes, it's like Canto 10, but in a story format? Yeah, was this something that like he kind of put, it's like he's the author of it in that way? Like fan fiction kind of, not quite fan fiction writing, but no, not fan fiction, but yeah, is he like the complete author of it? Yeah.
Good question, yeah. So Prabhupada says different things in different places, but the same point is always, the same essence is always there. That he's doing Krishna's work. Prabhupada is doing Krishna's work ultimately. Prabhupada is expanding on what Krishna has given us in this essential form. So there was an analogy that was once given to me, you know. I'm trying to remember it now. Anyways, that's escaped me. But yeah, so Prabhupada in some situations, he said that Krishna is personally dictating to me what to write. And then the devotee wasn't so sure. I think this is one of the memories of Shrutakirti Prabhu, who is Prabhupada's secretary. And Prabhupada would tell him that Krishna is personally dictating to me. And he didn't quite get it, you know. He just thought, yeah, you know, Prabhupada's reading the book and then that means like that. But Prabhupada was emphatic, like, no, Krishna is standing here and dictating to me. Prabhupada made it sure that he understood very clearly what he said. That Krishna is personally dictating to Prabhupada, physically, personally present and dictating to Prabhupada. Or to how he wants the books to be written in that way. So it's actually like that. And another aspect is another place Prabhupada would say, or generally it's understood that Prabhupada Prabhupada would give the mood in which we should understand, rather than so much of like the literal thing, you know. So Prabhupada, he wouldn't give, like sometimes you read the transliteration, you know what I mean by that? You know, Prabhupada, he translated every single word from Sanskrit to English.
Yeah.
But sometimes he would give a definition. Sometimes it would say like, you know, I don't know, some places like in Bhagavad Gita, it would say karma yoga. And then Prabhupada would translate devotional service. So you may see that sometimes when you read. And some people have doubts like that, you know, that why Prabhupada in one place, you know, when he writes about karma yoga, then he gives one definition, another place he writes a different way. So Prabhupada, he would give a contextual explanation rather than, you know, how you say, like, he wouldn't give a difficult presentation. He would bring you to what the conclusion is always. Yeah. So he was emphasizing what the conclusion is always. Therefore, his name is Bhakti Vedanta Swami. But the conclusion of all of the Vedas the Vedanta, which means conclusion, is what? Is bhakti. So that was his whole mission in life. Prabhupada's mission was to give bhakti as the conclusion of the Vedantas. So his writing was always in that way. Yeah, I hope that is okay. Prabhuji, is that okay? Would you like to add anything to this?
Yeah, and because Srila Prabhupada was a self-realized soul, so he didn't have any personal motive. And that's why you can see in all his explanation, doesn't matter which literature, there is a purity.
Mm.
And the way he explains, we can understand.
Yeah, that's really two really great points, probably. Yeah.
Yeah.
Prabhupada had no personal motivation, yeah, which we were discussing so much about before.
Yeah.
Mm. And also he made it so Prabhupada made everything so relevant for us, isn't it?
Yeah.
So in Prabhupada's other books, he would give examples of like modern world that we can relate to. Yeah.
And when there is a purity, Krishna always reveal, himself to help.
Yeah, it's not that Krishna will just come to anybody and dictate to them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Prabhuji, I even heard in one of the lectures that Prabhupada would, after writing this Krishna book, he would read it, and he would read it very enthusiastically.
Yeah.
And a devotee asked, I mean, when you write your own stuff, you don't keep on reading it enthusiastically. Yeah. And he says, yes, because I don't know what I've written, because it was just dictated and I wrote it down. So I'm reading it, and he used to get amazed.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a wonderful point. And that was, I think, specific to this Krishna book, if I'm not mistaken. That was specifically because Prabhupada would read Krishna book and that statement was made, if I'm not mistaken. So there's your answer, Priti.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, especially on Janmashtami at Bhaktivedanta Manor once in particular. It was coming close to midnight, and Prabhupada wanted the devotees to read up to midnight. And they were reading and reading and reading, and chapter by chapter and chapter. And they were fasting the whole day as well. And they had so much service as well on top. So it was like they were drained. But nobody does more service than Prabhupada. Nobody sleeps less than Prabhupada. And also from his physical age, you can say, he was more aged. And then Prabhupada was enraptured by hearing Krishna, but go on reading. And they were like, everyone else was falling asleep. So this is actually, they witnessed it firsthand, how much taste Prabhupada had in reading his own books or hearing his own books being read.
And when Srila Prabhupada was asked once, I forgot by whom, that, oh, Srila Prabhupada, you have written so many books. And he said, no, I haven't written any books. I was only using my hands and intelligence in the service of the Lord.
Mm. Yeah, Prabhupada, he would always pray like that, isn't it? I'm just the instrument.
Yeah, instrument.
Yeah, I'm just an instrument of the Lord.
So what he has written, it has come direct from the spiritual world, from Krishna.
Mm. Just like you have an instrument, which is a pen, isn't it? You use the pen to write. So Prabhupada just considered himself like, like a pen. Like Krishna says what to do, and I just write. Nothing is intervened by me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that is the reason he was reading his books as well.
Yeah. Amazing.
Because he never thought, if it's my books or I have written it, Otherwise, that's it. I have written it, I know everything now.
Yeah. So this is what it means by Nitya Nava Navayanam.
That's right, yeah.
So Prabhupada had that, actually. He personally lived that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's gone 9 o'clock. I'm quite aware that we're running over. but it's very easy to do when you talk about Srila Prabhupada.
I was thinking of having to leave a while ago, but I couldn't do that. I was just captured by the discussion. I just couldn't leave. So thank you for sharing all of that.
Well, I'm not even going to ask what time it is there in India. I know it's late. Thank you for staying.
And,
So everyone, thank you very much again. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
yeah.
Have a lovely week,
Thank
everybody.
you. Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna,
Hare
everybody.
Krishna.
Thank you.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.